You're watching Inside the Zone.
Well, we just got back from all those regional games on the road.
Just got in.
And everybody's going to be home this week. That's where we are. He's Justin Kenny. I'm Glenn Marini. This is your latest edition of Inside the Zone. And Justin, man, we went into last week with 6 teams. We got 5 teams now. So a pretty good showing for Northeast Indiana. It's kind of been a wild card of a season in that we didn't know at the beginning of the year exactly who was going to be still left, how many teams were going to be alive. But if you would have told me at the beginning of the season we'd have 5 teams playing for a semi-state title, I would have said that's on the high side.
That is on the high side. We always felt pretty confident in Adams Central all the way through the season. And you felt like whoever was able to come out of Sectional 19 and 4A, you had a good feeling that they could make a run. But 6A is so unpredictable, so you never know. But Carroll's been able to do it. You look at Bishop Luers and what they've been able to do from week 1 to now and the improvements they've made, and then South Adams as well. So here we are with 5 teams and came very close to having a area showdown in semi-state in Class 3A. Angola had a great shot.
We did, and we'll talk a lot about that game because Bishop Luers versus Knox is going to be our highlight zone game of the week. But for viewing purposes, we're going to go biggest classifications down to the smallest classifications. So it starts in 6A, as you mentioned, the Carroll Chargers going to Penn. What impressed you about that game? Because this is a game that was kind of like a tale of a roller coaster game, if you will. Carroll up early, then they give up the lead, and then they score 20 unanswered in the 4th. How do you see Carroll parlaying this into maybe another win this Friday against Westfield?
Well, it was a tremendous 4th quarter for Carroll in both aspects, both sides of the football. Offensively, had to score multiple touchdowns, and then the defense, after really giving up a lot of yardage through the first 3 quarters of the game, was really able to get some stops and pitch the shutout in the final quarter. So really impressed with what Carroll was able to do. How about Gabe Freisinger, over 500 yards of total offense in this game? Jaden Van Pelt, another huge game. How about Jaden Van Pelt when Freisinger has to leave the game in the 4th quarter for a play? Offensive coordinator Andy Papagiannis puts in Jaden Van Pelt at quarterback, throws a pass, a completion on 3rd and 8 that continues to drive that ended up in a touchdown. The kid can do it all. And the Carroll Chargers now a home game win away from returning to the state finals in 6A.
And you look at it historically, the last time these two played was 2022, and all Carroll did that year was go on and make the 6A state championship game. So pretty good precedent for these Carroll Chargers.
It absolutely is. And I think this game meant a lot on Friday because, for so long we've looked at Penn as that team that was going to derail everybody in this area outside of Snyder. For the better part of 30 years, 40 years even, Snyder and Penn have had quite the rivalry in the postseason. But that was really the only team in the area that we looked at that could derail Penn. And this was a vintage Penn team, 13 coming into this game, undefeated, and they lose at home by double digits to Carroll. I think this game meant a lot more. We talked so much about the Fort Wayne area closing the gap with Indy. I think what Friday did was show that the gap between Penn and everybody else that we felt so much in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s is gone, with Carroll being able to go there and get the win.
And those 20 unanswered points in the 4th quarter, pretty impressive. Here's a little spoiler alert. Your highlight, or your OPS team of the week is the Carroll Chargers. There you go. So
it's a solid pick.
After that 4th quarter, man, how could you deny the Carroll Chargers team of the week accolades? So when you go into this game, obviously you're feeling pretty good if you're the Carroll Chargers.
Right.
Westfield comes in with 2 losses, but those are to number 1, Brownsburg, number 2, Carmel, and then they avenged that loss to Carmel with an overtime win against the Greyhounds earlier in the postseason. So what does Westfield do well? Because statistically, I was kind of going through the numbers. There wasn't any one thing that jumped out at me offensively that Westfield did so well that you have to look at if you're Carroll and say, all right, we got to stop XYZ.
Which is kind of a challenge, too, because when you look at Westfield, there's so many teams out there who say, okay, if we stop or slow down this, then we're in a good shape. And Westfield battle-tested, with the schedule they play. Nothing that they see on Friday is going to be anything different or unique to what they saw the rest of the season. So that is the challenge for Carroll, is finding what they can do against Westfield, particularly defensively. I think you look at that offense that has been so tremendous, and Gabe Freisinger just amazing, particularly the second half of the season, is in Westfield's athletes match up with Carroll's athletes offensively, because I think Carroll is at its best when it can pile up points, obviously, but really have advantages in the run and the pass. and we'll see if they can continue that against Westfield.
The one thing that brings me pause about Westfield is that they have 41 sacks this season.
That's not bad.
They get to the quarterback.
They do.
And when we saw Carroll play against Center Grove, the one thing that was difficult for them to match up with those big 6A Indy teams was that massive defensive line from Center Grove. This could be another case of, all right, the trenches defensively on the defensive line for Westfield could be problematic for a Carroll offensive line that's been really good so far this season, and a running game that's started to find its feet over the last couple of weeks for Carroll.
Yeah, and even Gabe Freisinger with his legs being able to get it done, right? Over 100 yards rushing last week. And so I think that's a really big thing, too, because every quarterback, regardless of the level, is not as effective when he's running for his life, right? Consistently, right? So that's the thing is, can they protect Gabe Freisinger, give him a clean pocket, allow him to get the ball downfield to guys like Jaden Van Pelt? If he doesn't have time, can he make some plays on the run?
Talking about great defenses, let's talk about some 4A football, because Bishop Dwenger certainly has that. But they will be tested this coming week against South Bend St. Joseph. This is a South Bend St. Joseph team also with a really good defense. Both of these teams give up less than 9 points a game.
Yeah.
And they took on a Hobart team last week. The Brickies, pretty good, coming in averaging 30-plus a game. They only scored 7 against South Bend St. Joe's. So how do you see this one playing out, knowing that Bishop Dwenger, it's kind of a strength on strength when you talk about two teams that really hang their hat on the defensive side of the football?
Well, and those types of games can change on a dime, right? One or two plays can be pivotal. I think what we saw to Bishop Dwenger on Saturday, or excuse me, Friday, was very impressive offensively, being able to put up 39 points. And so you feel, and it was balanced too, right? Just a couple yards over 200 yards rushing. Henry Jordan was good in throwing the football, 178 yards passing. He was responsible for both touchdown passes and then the touchdown run that you see right there. So Henry Jordan, I think he's not putting up the prolific numbers that guys like Gabe Freisinger is, but he's also effective when he needs to be. And I feel like this game is going to come down to a handful of plays, right? And Bishop Dwenger just has to execute offensively and then not allow St. Joe to execute on defense.
I'm glad you brought up Henry Jordan, because my one thought on this game was the Lebanon game was that this was the best game he played so far this season. It balanced, he got other guys involved. It wasn't just, if you're going to the passing game, it's going to be, Beckham Russell. You saw Carter Zent with the touchdown.
Yeah.
You saw him spread the football around, run it well, decided to make great decisions with the football, keeping it on option plays. Considering that this offense now has started to play, that was the best I've seen Dwenger play offensively in a while. We know what they can do on special teams. We know what they can do on defense. If you have all three facets kind of clicking right now, you feel pretty good if you're Jason Garrett and the Saints.
And conversely, if you're St. Joe, you're a little bit worried because you feel like, okay, if we can limit Bishop Dwenger's offense and keep this game low scoring, of which, to your point, St. Joe has done against Hobart, and even throughout the playoffs, there's a lot of 14-7 games in there, 10-7 last week. So low scoring is what St. Joe wants, right? If they give up 30-plus points to Bishop Dwenger, they're not winning this football game. So for Bishop Dwenger offensively, if they can keep that good momentum going that they picked up against last week against Lebanon, and then really kind of put the pressure on St. Joe to make some plays with their offense, that plays into Dwenger's hands just because how good that defense is.
When you look at South Bend St. Joe's, I mean, we saw them early in the season against Southside. It was week 1 or 2, 26-0 against the Archers. Like, I had no idea at that time that this would be a team that would be at semi-state. Like, not a knock on South Bend St. Joe's, but you just didn't know at that time that was going to be this team. For Bishop Dwenger, I guess you're not as surprised that they're here, especially with the way that they handled East Noble in the sectional championship game.
Very much so. And then you look at this matchup, only the second time these two teams have ever played. The last time was in 2022 or 2015, I believe, when Bishop Dwenger won 41-7. That was, of course, the state championship year with Ernie Bojrab in for Chris Schwarzkopf as head coach. So if the similar thing happens in round 2 as it did in round 1, Bishop Dwenger fans will be pretty happy.
All right, so that one is going to be at Shields Field on Friday night. Our Highlight Zone game of the week comes in 3A. We've got perhaps history in the making. Kyle Lindsay would like to say no. But Lures versus Knox, how do you see this one playing out with Miles McLaughlin and what Knox brings in?
Well, we saw what Miles McLaughlin can do firsthand last week against Angle. Just a tremendous football player. Goes for 374 yards and has the game-clinching interception, his 7th of the year. So this kid can do it all. But you look at what Bishop Lures does and the strengths of the Knights, particularly defensive front, right? So I don't think it's fair to say you can go out and stop Miles McLaughlin, but if you can go out there and limit him and force him to maybe throw the football, of which they've only done a handful of times this year, that's advantage Knights. You look at Bishop Luers now with 2 1,000-yard rushers with TJ Epperson and Brandon Gaither. Gaither having a great game last week. Is, you control the ball. If you're Bishop Luers, you play keep away a little bit. It doesn't have to be a dynamic Bishop Luers attack. It just needs to get the job done. Miles McLaughlin's going to get his. But as long as you don't let other guys beat you, I think the Knights got a good shot.
And when you take a look at Bishop Luers, I mean, you're looking at the Twin Lakes highlights last week. Luers' defense gave up 0 points. It was a 14-7 game, but they scored on a pick 6.
Yeah.
So Luers defensively, we've talked about it all year long, especially on the defensive front. But now you take a look at Miles McLaughlin, like he did get his against Angola, but they barely beat Angola 28-21. Credit to Angola, but Hawk Hasselman was kind of going punch for punch with him for there a little while. So if you're Bishop Luers, you have to feel pretty good about what you were able to do last week defensively and also what Angola was able to do against Knox last week.
Yeah, I mean, as great as Miles McLaughlin is, he is Knox's offense. So when he goes for 250, 300, 350 yards, that's the entirety of the Knox offense. You look at Carroll and you say, okay, we give up 190 yards receiving to Jaden Van Pelt, but they all also rush for 200 yards. Well, Jaden Van Pelt is just one cog in the machine for Carroll. McLaughlin is the machine for Knox. So you can let him go crazy and get everything he does because there's nobody else that does anything because Miles McLaughlin's the quarterback, the zone read, and it's through him. So if you're Bishop Luers, if you're Kyle Lindsey, you say, okay, we're not going into this game trying to figure out how to stop Miles McLaughlin. We're going to limit him as much as possible. We just got to make sure nobody else does anything offensively. And then conversely, you mentioned that pick 6. Bishop Luers has to limit those mistakes, limit those turnovers, and I think they can knock off the Redskins.
When you take a look at the historical aspect of this game, Derrick Henry's national rushing yardage record for his career is up for grabs. Miles McLaughlin needs 364 yards. He got over 370 last week.
Yeah.
If he has a repeat performance, he will have one of the greatest records in high school football in the country. It's crazy that could happen here in Fort Wayne, but if you're Jaron Taylor, if you're Ale Taylor, if you're the rest of that Bishop Luers defense, like you would like nothing more than to end that career and make sure that doesn't happen at Luers Field. Like that's almost as good as going to state,
right? In
a certain degree.
Yeah, and it's the thing is like if you hold Miles McLaughlin to 200 yards, you feel pretty good, right, on the ground, and so that's really the mission for Bishop Luers this week is to get ready and be ready for that zone read offense, which is not easy to defend, but you're going up against potential history, but you're also looking at it, and to your point, talking about Angola, it's not a great Angola team. It peaked at the right time, had some upsets in the postseason, but without 3 turnovers in the red zone, they probably beat Knox last week. So you're looking at that game and say, okay, yeah, Miles McLaughlin got his, but Angola should have won that game, and you feel pretty good if you're Bishop Luers heading into this game, I feel.
Yeah, and Tommy Reichert has kind of settled in at that quarterback position. You mentioned Brandon Gaither had a big game, 160 yards in the game-winning touchdown in the fourth quarter. Like, those sophomores are coming along for Bishop Luers. Yeah. You're to the point where you're 14 games in now as of Friday night. Those sophomores essentially have had another season of football, and you feel pretty good about where you're at offensively because Luers, Carswell, and those guys, they've started to look a lot better in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I mean Tommy Reichert too. He's limited the turnovers. The pick 6 last week was kind of troublesome, but you're going to get that sometimes with sophomores. The thing is with Bishop Luers' running game has come along so well throughout the season is you don't necessarily need Tommy Reichert to win games for you. You just don't need him to lose games for you, right? And you look at Knox defensively, good unit, but we're not talking about Bishop DeWenger defense here or anything. You can run on this team, and I think that's going to be the game plan for Bishop Luers is being able to control the football, move the ball on the ground, hand off to those running backs, Reichert strike when you need to, and kind of let Miles McLaughlin, do his thing, but maybe not go insane, and you got a good shot.
The thing with Luers is I would be interested to know what the time of possession for Knox's opponents have been this season because Miles McLaughlin, I mean, it's direct snap. I mean, he's running the football pretty much every single play. Like I don't know what the defensive numbers look like for Knox, but I would be wondering how much time they spend on the field.
Right.
And if that kind of skews the numbers to the point that they maybe look a little bit better than they were, because as you mentioned, Angola had they had the special teams return, the punt return for a touchdown, but a couple of touchdowns in the air and on the ground from
Right.
Hawk Hasselman. I mean, if you're Luers, maybe you poke in some holes and figure out some things this week.
Yeah, Angola had no problem moving the ball
Yeah.
last week against Knox. It was just being able to complete drives, particularly when they got inside the 20. So there's opportunity there for Bishop Luers. And I think so much of the focus, for good reason, has been on Miles McLaughlin, but you just wonder, not to take anything away from that, the schedule hasn't been murderous for Knox, right? But undefeated is undefeated at this point. But I just think there's more opportunity than maybe some people let on for Bishop Luers in this game because of the matchup.
All right, let's talk about two-way. Adams Central versus Andrean. I think, at the beginning of the season, we were like, if Adams Central's going to make it back, they're going to have to get by Andrean at some point.
And here we are.
And
huh?
here we are. So sometimes things play out just exactly as we planned them. Not very often. You can ask my wife about that. But Adams Central at Andrean. Unfortunately, Adams Central has to go on the road at Andrean.
Yeah.
Like, how did that work out for the second year in a row? But last year they beat Andrean 20-13 on the road in this same round. How do you see this playing out? Because this is an Andrean team that had some young dudes on the team last year, a lot of sophomores and juniors this year in standout positions that have gotten more experience. But Adams Central, they just keep doing what they
Right.
do. And Eastbrook had them on the ropes, and all of a sudden, Adams Central scores 42. How do you see this one playing out Friday night up in the region?
Well, I don't think Coach Michael Mosier could have asked for a better challenge last Friday than what they got out of Eastbrook, not just because of the game and how it went, but falling behind double digits early, right? 14-0 in the second quarter, and you have to fight back and win this football game. Rarely has Adams Central had to face something like that this season, being behind, let alone being behind double digits. So that was a tremendous boost, I think, for Adams Central in preparation for Andrean. And Andrean's going to have revenge on the mind. You mentioned the semi-state matchup last year up at Andrean. I think it was a 2013 final that Adams Central got the win. So Andrean is more experienced, better this year. Adams Central still looking great, 27 straight wins. But if the Flying Jets are going to make it 5 straight appearances in the state championship, they're going to have to go on the road and beat a really good Andrean team.
And you just saw a touchdown pass from Jamison Roach to Braylon Reber. I would argue that passing game, we've seen some really nice touchdown passes to Joey Everett in the last few weeks. Like, that might be the area where they are better this year, Adams Central. We talk about it every year. They add a little more to the passing game, but they needed it against Eastbrook, and Jamison Roach delivered with a passing game.
We talked about it last week about that felt like a game where Jamison Roach was really going to be able to showcase his skills passing the ball, because they haven't needed it very often. Just because they don't do it doesn't mean they can't do it, and we saw that last week against the Panthers. So, Jamison Roach, I still think, is that X factor here in this game, because anybody who says, well, Adams Central's one-dimensional doesn't know much about Adams Central this year. They can pass when they need to, and they were able to against Eastbrook, and you bet to win at Andrean, they're going to have to do that again.
And when you look at Adams Central, you alluded to this as well. They hadn't really been tested a bunch this season. That Eastbrook game, you're down 14-7 at the half. They made some uncharacteristic errors in the first half of your Adams Central. Josh Ann was at the game. He goes, "That's as angry as I've ever seen Michael Mosier." He's like one of the nicest guys in the world, right? And he goes, "I've never seen him so angry as he was at halftime going in there." And obviously what he said worked. But really just their ability to execute and having a game where their backs were against the wall. An absolutely great second half for Adams Central, something you can parlay into this week.
Well, it's huge because coaches will stress it, but if you're beating up on everybody week after week after week, it's very difficult to stay focused and be at that razor's edge the best you possibly need to be. Michael Mosier is one of the best at making sure his team is like that each and every week, but it can be difficult on teenagers. And so to have a game like that and to have to fight back and win the way they won last week was very impressive. And then the confidence, too, of what they did last year at Andrean is this is a familiar spot that guys like Jamison Roach and Reber and Hayden Bloom have all been in a year ago. And so there's some familiarity there, and I think that helps going into it. But Andrean wants to make sure that this isn't a 2-for-2 for the Flying Jets 2 straight years.
And we were at the landing strip Minnick Field in Monroe as Eastbrook and Adams Central went toe-to-toe with Adams Central pulling out the victory last Friday night. We had a chance to talk to the Jets about the victory, and here's what they had to say.
What does this win say about this team?
It just shows that we have a lot of resilience. I mean, we were down, but we kept fighting, never let the deficit get in our heads, and we just went out there and dominated.
I was going to say, how did this team find a way to bounce back? Because it was kind of an uncharacteristic first half for this group.
We just never gave up on ourselves. We knew that we could go out there and execute, and that the game was never over.
For you, you stepped up with some big-time plays, some huge touchdown runs, especially when Jamie wasn't able to get going early on. How did you shoulder the load, especially offensively?
I mean, I couldn't have done it without my line and everyone else blocking. So I just want to credit all of them. I'm just a part of the team.
I was going to say, you broke off that big touchdown run after it was tied at 28 apiece. Just what'd you see during that sequence that allowed you to find the end zone once again?
Green grass. I don't know. I saw a hole. I hit it. I don't know.
Simple enough, man. Hey, you're going back to Andrean. Another semi-state title on the line. Just how are you embracing this moment to keep this season going at least one more week?
We just got to keep working hard. Can't get content. And we just got to keep pushing and get ready for next week.
I got one for you. Coming out of halftime, you guys are down 14-7. Immediately score a touchdown, get the stop, score again. Just what is it like on the sideline in those moments?
Just a lot of emotions. We got a lot of momentum. It was just everyone was excited and it got us going.
Jamie, that was probably as hard fought of a win that we've seen from this Adams Central team in some time outside of the state finals. For you guys to erase a 14-0 deficit, come back and win another regional, what does that say about this team?
It really just shows that the level that we can play to whenever we're down, even like whenever we're in a low place, we were still able to dig ourselves out or crawl ourselves out of the hole that we dug, and we were able to just play better and just play our best football.
I was going to say, what was the biggest difference from that first half when it felt like Eastbrook was winning at the line of scrimmage to the rest of the game when you guys were dictating the game on your terms?
That first half, we weren't clicking, we were off. Went to the locker room, got a pretty stern talking to from coach to get us going, get us fired up, and we kept our heads and we just played a great second half.
I was going to say, for you had some key touchdown passes, especially in the second half. How about that one to Braylon? Just what'd you see on that play that allowed you to get the lead once again in the start of the fourth quarter?
Whenever I see Braylon in that one-on-one coverage, I tend to throw it to him whenever he's there. So and he always seems to come down with it. So that's kind of all I saw.
And then with the chance to basically ice the game, you have that dart over to Joey. Again, what was being said in that huddle that allowed you guys to finally get over the edge and put away Eastbrook?
Our coaches called that play knowing that the 4 was going to more than likely be there. So they told me to look there first and then look to the fly. And if that wasn't there, then to try and take off. But the 4 was there. It was wide open. It was a great catch from Joey, great touchdown, and just to seal the game.
You get a rematch against Andrean next week, another chance to go back to Lucas Oil again. Just what are you most excited about? A chance to get at least another week with these guys and go back to a place where you had some success?
I'm definitely most excited to just go there and prove that we are the best team in the state, and that prove that we can compete with anybody, regardless of what people say, and that even if we do have a 3-hour-long bus ride, we're still going to be able to go play our best football.
As hard fought of a win for this Adams Central team that we have seen outside of the state finals, to erase a 14-0 deficit, come back and win. What does it say about this team?
Heart and guts. Our theme is heart, guts, family, and we saw that tonight. Down, had to fight back. Had a couple chances there in the first half and just failed. Came into halftime, made some adjustments, and these guys were determined. And that's a very good football team, hard-nosed football team, well coached. We got so much respect for them, and I'm so proud of how our kids responded and made plays when we needed to, both offensively and defensively. I'm a little unsure what to say because I'm just taken back a little bit by these guys, but they really just did a super job, and I'm so proud of them.
After you guys scored 21 straight, it looked like you guys could have cruised ahead to another regional title, but this Eastbrook team, they found a way to fight back tooth and nail. How did this team just continue to weather that adversity when Eastbrook was matching you guys punch for punch?
Well, we knew we had to do the same. We knew going into this game, if this game was going to be like that, we were going to have a hard time stopping them. They're going to have a hard time stopping us, and so we had to be able to counter that. It's just about sheer determination of our guys to be able to make the plays when we need to. Jamie made some big pass plays plays when he needed to. Braylon Reber, Joey Everett made some big plays. Vance made some big plays when we needed him to because they had stopped Jamie off our edge, and we had to go to Vance. And Vance just showed up and made some great runs for us at big times and put us over the edge. And my emotions all game were up and down, like what's going on, and excited, depressed. You ran the gamut of emotions in this game, and I'm so proud of him, so proud of him.
Michael Mosier, excited, ready to go. Different attitude than at halftime. So
yeah, you were telling
demeanor,
me up there.
not attitude.
He was none too pleased.
Not pleased at all at halftime. So glad to see him happy. Will he be happy this Friday when he goes up to Andrean?
I don't know. It's a really big challenge for Adams Central. And we talked about it last week, too, is when you step up a class, you are going to find yourself with a lot more landmines, so to speak, in your quest to get back to the state championship. And we see that in year 2 now in 2A for Adams Central. You have to deal with Eastbrook. Now you have to deal with Andrean. It's a tough task to go up there and win, but Adams Central did it last week. We'll see if they can make it back-to-back seasons.
I like it. It's an honest answer. Let's talk about 1A. South Adams. This is a team we've been talking about all season, and they are at semi-state again for the second year in a row. This time they're facing a Pioneer team that comes in. You know, I think of Pioneer. I think of Jack Kaiser and kind of the pedigree. They've got. They don't throw it a ton. Matter of fact, they've only thrown for 396 yards this season.
That's a game for Titus Lehman.
I was going to say, that's Titus Lehman on a typical Friday. But they have 3 guys that have rushed for over 1,000 yards. So no mystery about what they're going to try to do on Friday night. How do you see this one hashing itself out in Bern on Friday, knowing that these are 2 very different types of offenses?
It is, and you looked at what North Miami was able to do against South Adams last week, and predominantly a running team, right? And they were able to control the game, but in the end, Titus Lehman and that offense was able to make enough plays, particularly downfield, to pull out the win at North Miami. So you look at Pioneer, and they say they're in like a better version of North Miami, you could say, in terms of what they do. And then defensively, you know they're going to be sound. But you just look at what South Adams does, and you're saying, okay, if they can put up enough points, and that's the big thing that we talked about Bishop Luers and even Carroll, is they can protect the quarterback, right, and give Titus Lehman time. Once again, I like South Adams' chances against the Pioneer defense being able to put up points. But it comes back to that Starfire's defense. Is can it hold? Can it not be a team that just allows Pioneer to run the ball down their throat and control the clock?
I'll draw the ire of Grant Mosier here, but I'll play devil's advocate because the one thing that I would be concerned about if I'm South Adams is how much time Pioneer is going to possess the ball with that running offense. They've thrown 13 interceptions this year, South Adams has, and that comes with as many times as they throw the football, it happens. But if you make an early turnover and then get behind, you're not going to have a lot of time to make up a score or 2 against a team like Pioneer when they are predominantly, almost exclusively running the football. So like a good start in this game, or maybe just not a bad start, really huge, and you can't afford to turn the football over against a team like this.
No, exactly. I mean, South Adams has played from behind and won before, but as you get deeper into the playoffs, there are teams that if they get you down, they're not going to let you come back, right? And to your point, South Adams' margin for error, if they can't slow down Pioneer from getting into the end zone and eating up clock, is going to be razor thin offensively, which means you have to score every time you touch the ball if you can't get defensive stops. And I think in a way, the defense fuels the offense in this game for South Adams because it wouldn't put a ton of pressure on that offense to make sure they score every possession if the defense can get some stops.
And to me, the question, if you're Pioneers, how do you match up with Somerset and McCain and Warner and all those dudes? Like, I mean, that's really been the case, and we've seen, I mean, you've got 2 guys with over 1,000 yards receiving. Somerset's got over 1,400 yards, and then they'll run him. You know, at the goal line. So that would be my biggest concern if I was Pioneer coming into this one. How do you slow those 2 dudes down?
Well, I think you mentioned it. You know, double-digit interceptions thrown. I think if you're Pioneer, you say, look, we're going to slow them down if we can, but if we can get a key stop here or there, a key turnover here or there, maybe South Adams puts it on the ground once, maybe they throw a pick once. That could be the difference in this game, particularly if Pioneer, every possession, they're saying, we're going to eat up 6, 7, 8 minutes off the clock every time we have the ball. And if they can do that and convert it into points, that puts a lot of pressure on South Adams offense.
Special teams could be big in this one. These
Yes,
could be
very true.
Sty Pyle. That's my name. That's my name to know. Kick returner extraordinaire. Not a big guy, but a fast guy. Sty Pyle. If he makes a big play in this game, we're going to run this back and tell you how great we are at picking.
We
these
rarely
things.
have the opportunity to. So.
We don't have that much, but once the Emmy season comes out,
That's right.
and we take home a bunch of trophies, then you'll understand. But all right, we got 5 semi-state title games, most of them being played here in Northeast Indiana. We'll have it covered on the Highlight Zone. But for Justin, I'm Glenn. We'll see you next Monday here on Inside the Zone.
You're watching Inside the Zone.